Right, so welcome back to Adventure 82. Today we're out Catterick Garrison, something I've been meaning to do for a while. So Catterick Garrison is the home to a branch line that used to come off the old Richmond Railway. It's called the Catterick Camp line. So we're here to have a nose around, see what's left, which I already know isn't a lot, but explain the function of the line, where it was, when it closed, as if we can't guess. Mr. Beeching, it's your fault again. And yeah, just have a general nose round because it's quite interesting. It's not every day you get a military railway. So cue the music, I suppose. Right, so the first bit we're going to look at today is the roundabout, because it's a good point of reference for what happened with the railway. So you can clearly see already that there's a train in the middle of the railway. That's to pay homage to the train, the actual train track itself. So the spur used to come down this road here. This is Leyburn Road. Used to go through the roundabout here and used to disappear off up that way, and that's called Catterick Road. It didn't run exactly on the road. It ran on this side. It ran on the Catterick Road side. It ran alongside it. Across there now, where there's now grass. On this side, it came straight through the centre of the roundabout. It went through the middle of here, and then there was a couple of spurs up here. So the Catterick Camp Railway was a series of offshoots. It was one long, almost like a loop. It's really hard to explain, but if I haven't already, I'll put in a cut in. Right, so as I said, I'd explain the line to you. So this is the main line, Richmond, that goes off up along here. What we're looking at is from here onwards. So this is Catterick Junction station, which we'll get to in a moment. Brompton as well is up here. Brompton station had two different sites. They're basically the same place. It's just the first site was on one side of the road. The second side was on the opposite side of the road. Now, when this was built originally back in 1915, this line was only ever meant to be a temporary thing for the First World War. They actually decided after the First World War that it would be a permanent railway, at which point in 1927 it was handed over to the LNER, and the LNER would run it. And it was at that point that the LNER got rid of things that they didn't need. So this station here, which was called California, and this station here, which nobody knows exactly where it was, there's only a mention of it twice in a book. And there's no mention of either of these stations after 1919, so I'm guessing these were closed, probably not even by LNER, but by the actual military themselves, leaving you with just Catterick Bridge at the top here, Brompton, and then Catterick Camp Central, Catterick Camp Centre, or Catterick Central Railway station. It has like multiple different names. It's all the same blooming station. So that's the layout of it. You can see what I mean though when I say it's a load of dead ends. If you didn't know better, you'd say they kind of threw some spaghetti on a map and just laid it there. But no, the camp itself was built with the railway. They were built around the same time. So the railway was finished in 1915. The actual camp itself opened and had soldiers in it from 1916. And it was from then on that then troops or servicemen would be shipped up here, trained, and then sent to the front lines across the sea in World War One. Most of them never to return, as was the way with the first and second small disagreement between Europe and a certain country which will remain unnamed. So that's how that one worked. But yeah, so that's the layout of these of the railway and the stations involved in it. Like I say, these two were gone by 1919. There's no trace of them anymore. Brompton's been long gone, and it's now all been filled in. Catterick Bridge is now being filled in, and where Catterick Bridge once was is now a caravan sales dealership. So that's why we stuck around this area, because it's the only place that has any kind of remnants of it, because it's still owned by the Ministry of Defence, and some of the buildings, I say some, are still there. Anyway, back to me in Catterick Garrison. Right, so let's come to our first section of the line, which went straight through these gates here. It's worth noting that this alignment here of this pathway, which is now how people walk up and down, that's the alignment of the tracks. Up to this point, the railway came up here, followed this, went straight through and up into here, and then it went straight through up and out the other end of the site. But when you got to the other end of the site, it's split into 4 sections. But I'll take you up the other end to explain that. So it's when you look from this end where the gate is on the other side here of the gate, you can see there's a little white check-in building there. I'm guessing that would have been, from the fact that also the sign says there, visitors check-in, they would have had to go there to check in first. But you can see here now how like you would have had one building there where the railway went in. They've got like a funny angle on it now. So I don't know if that was added later, it looks like it was. And you've got like a very far back section there, but there where like you would have been able to drive up, get stuff from the train, which only came about halfway down the site at the very back. I'm guessing that that building there actually maybe. I'm almost certain that's original because it's got that kind of 1960s flat tarmac roof style, which was so popular back then. But yeah, very forlorn, very sorry for itself. C'est la vie. Right, so we're now on the grass area on the opposite side of the site where you just saw me at the gates, and this will allow me to explain how the railway split, although you should have probably seen the map by now. If not, once you see the map, it will all become clear. So once you're stood about here, this railway split into 4 sections. One was dead centre to this pretty much. You went straight through that tree, because if you look through that tree, you can see the road where that leads down to the gate, so you should be able to, hopefully. But that went straight through down through that edge of the gate there, next on the right hand side of the tree, straight down. That was the through line. You had a section that went off to the right, went off through these gates over here and into the military complex, and you had another spur that went off slightly off to the left, and went kind of off to the left of this tree here. You had one that went off to the far left and went straight through into the back of the site. The two on the left were sidings. You had your through line there, and then you had this one here that veered off to the right. That was a siding and a delivery point, so it went slightly off. So it curved off in this direction, and then you had a siding off on this side, and then it was able to reverse up, come all the way along here, and then deliver to this point here where you can see the raised sections, which would have been delivery platforms back in the day, obviously now delivered to by trucks. And then it would have continued, the straight section would have continued up here till round about where the golf course is, give or take. And just before then it would have veered off left through this shrubbery here, which is known local, which has got a little river flowing through it, a little beck. And then it would have gone through there, over the beck, Lad Mill Beck it's called, and then it would have come out onto what's called Gough Road, and then it would have gone through that way, and then it had a straight section up, and then that ended in 2 dead ends as well. So it was very much a delivery line. It wasn't so much about getting passengers A to B as it was getting what the military wanted, where they wanted it to be. That's what this line was about, that's what it was for. And it did it very, very well. It did take passengers, obviously only military personnel, but it did take passengers. The Catterick Camp line itself used to connect up the far end, as I mentioned before, to the NER line, which would have been the main line out of Richmond back in the day, which is also closed. which is why tracing all these lines is so difficult. It takes so long in between videos on these lines for me to get this all right, because I don't want to get it wrong. But I'm sure if I get anything wrong, somebody will correct me. Just keep it constructive. There's no need to be daft. But we're going to go back down this way now. And what we're going to do down there, we're going to go back down to where the roundabout is, which is where it continued on through. And from there, there's a couple of stories to do with the railway itself. Right, so as I'm walking back down, I thought I'd show you, because these buildings look like they may well be the originals from back in the day of the railway itself. But they're looking a bit worse for wear, a bit forlorn. I don't think, I may be wrong, and I'm sure if I am, somebody will correct me, but I don't think that these are actually used anymore, any of them. I think all these buildings here now are all just abandoned. I see people going in there every now and again, but I don't think the military use them at all. You can see they're growing all their weeds, and they're just looking generally sorry for themselves, to be honest. You can see in areas where like things have been altered. You can see like there, for instance, there's a slope there, so clearly there would have been a doorway or something there once upon a time, but that's long gone. And yeah, any remnant of the railway existing that would have run along here is completely gone without a trace. There may be signs inside, but because obviously it's MOD, getting in there is a big no-no. But yeah, so like I said, back to the roundabout, and hopefully, as you can see by these clouds probably above me, I'm hoping that we get there and we finish this off before it rains, because I don't have a bloody coat. Right, so we're now back at the railway. It's worth noting that the section up there that I told you about before was called Catterick Camp Central. That will become extremely relevant later on once we get over the other side of this roundabout. But yeah, so there would, this railway, I think it would have been nice to have it still running, to be honest. I know the military don't really use it for logistics, but I think these days, with everybody wanting to be green and stuff, I think it would do quite well as the passenger railway, because up this neck of the woods where we are, you kind of Leyburn, Catterick, Richmond, what else is up here? Colburn, Beardale. None of us really have a link. So you have a train station obviously in York, you have one in Harrogate, you have one in Darlington, you have a train station obviously in Northallerton, but then there's this big gap in like inside the Dales where there's nothing. Now I know a lot of the time there wasn't in the first place, but the railways that were there, if they'd still been there, I think would be really quite useful and well used, because public transport around this way is non-existent as well, but I know that's nothing to do with the line. So just let me get across the road though. Right, so as I mentioned before, Catterick Camp had two disasters in its lifetime. The first one being on the 15th September 1917, when some soldiers were boarding a train, the Scots Guards, just up the road here at the Catterick Camp Central station. And the train was uncoupled to go to the other end of the train to pull it back down, when they realised that some of the carriages hadn't been braked properly. So some of the carriages broke free, started running away, picked up speeds of up to 50 miles an hour before eventually getting as far as the Catterick Camp Railway junction near the bottom just beforehand at the Catterick Bridge station, and derailing themselves, killing 3 people who were on the breakaway carriages at the time. It was never publicised, or not much anyway, but sadder still was the second story in 1944 during peacetime, during the Second World War, where the train was actually up at the Catterick Bridge site, formerly Catterick Bridge Station, being loaded with ammunition, when two soldiers who were loading the ammunition were a bit too rough with it, triggering a massive explosion which took out most of the station, and 4 people died that day as a result of the explosion. The cause of the explosion has always been put down to mishandling of the explosives. Coverage of it actually at the time though, however, was surprisingly scarce, because there was next to no newspaper articles or anything, despite the fact it was peacetime, because of course during the Second World War there was a certain amount of quietness to surround what was going on during the Second World War, because they didn't want to give away what they were doing. But right, so I thought I'd give you a bit more information on the second explosion. So, like I say, it was on the 4th February 1944. Soldiers, like I say, had been loading up the train with explosives, which were supposed to have been used for the D-Day effort. They never got that far, as we're aware now. The explosion was such a large radius, as you can see from these pictures, as I'm explaining it to you, the railway hotel and the station was severely damaged. And in fact, a lorry driver who was in a hut 30 feet away from the explosion was actually blown off his feet and wounded by some of the shrapnel. Despite that, however, he and his injuries, he got back up and he saved several people that day and carried on despite his injuries as well, helping with the recovery effort with the rescue team that arrived after the explosion as well, and consequently was awarded the Edward Cross by the military for his gallantry and effort in helping what would have been a much worse disaster had those people not been saved. But yeah, it's just a shame that such a thing happened at peacetime. You can imagine that whilst the inquiry was going on, because the military had an inquiry into the explosion, that things were running wild about how Hitler or the Germans had sabotaged the train, but no, it was just unfortunate carelessness on the soldiers' end, unfortunately. But needless to say, those men, as you can see, also from the pictures, rest peacefully now in their graves. And just like anybody else who was in World War One or Two, we're very thankful for their efforts and their sacrifices, because otherwise we wouldn't be here today. But back to the railway. Right, so just finished filming. I've just come across this, so if you're seeing this, you probably haven't seen the end of the video yet, but just wondering what it was, because this is dead, so I can't use this anymore. But there's like a white section there, which is like a barrier you normally have to stop cars coming in, and there's clearly a black gate there once upon a time. So what this was, don't know. It looks like hasn't been used in quite some time, mind. You've got like graffiti and such on the wall, but it's just by the Aldi in Catterick Garrison. I don't know what it is, but if anybody out there in Catterick Garrison would like to enlighten me as to what this was, that'd be brilliant, because I'll be buggered if I know. Very interesting looking building though. Nothing to do with our railway, but I just thought it was interesting. Oh, see what I mean? It's clearly been left for a while. It's so overgrown. Well, hopefully somebody can shed some light on what this is. Right, so as you walk along now what's now a cycle path, you can see here, you see the lie of the land slightly. I hope it comes out in the camera, but you can see here just behind these two trees here, it's completely flat. That was your lie of the railway as it came down through what's now the right-hand entrance to Roundabouts, straight through the centre where the train is, up that way. And you can actually see from this way, that's actually quite a gradient for a train. But as we all know, trains don't like gradient. So, right, so I did a fit ending with that by one of the trees along where the railway used to be, and I did a full explanation of the railway and stuff, which, as you've probably seen now, I added it in showing you how the railway worked. Reason being is that the ending had no sound. As is the way with these YouTube videos, you go out there, you record, sometimes doesn't work. So I've got like a little Sony microphone that's downstairs charging at the minute, and it's got like a little separate receiver that goes on top of the camera, the GoPro, which I'm filming this on, and then it has the little fluffy bit that you see hooked on my t-shirt. And the problem is that what happened is that they have, and I don't know why I suppose it's a battery saving thing, but if you go X amount of time and you can't change how much time it is without talking, the microphone turns itself off. And then my daft brain, which is fixated solely on making the video because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing, doesn't check if it's turned itself off. So I end up with no sound on occasion. Normally, I play back videos on purpose to make sure I've got sound on, but yeah, no, anyway. So, yeah, that's the Catterick Camp line. We may take a trip up the other end because there's still an abandoned bridge from what used to be the Catterick Bridge Station, which I'd like to have a look at. So that'll be in a future video. That'll be a bit of an explore on that end of the line, because that's the only bit of the line that I think is left now, up that end. As you can see, there's not much the other end. If it wasn't for the fact it was the Ministry of Defence, I don't think there'd be anything at the other end at all. But yeah, so that's the Catterick Camp Railway. Hope you enjoyed the video. I've got a poll at the moment. If you go onto the post section on your phone or on a PC, a computer, of the channel main page on YouTube, asking you what kind of videos you want to see from me. So if you could go on there and vote. I'm just trying to, obviously I've been throwing a lot of stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, to see since I moved. I just want your guys' opinion on it, because YouTube only gives me half of that. I won't go into any further than that because there's a whole video on that if you want to know about the poll more in depth. But yeah, if you could go and vote, that'd be brilliant, just so it gives me an idea what direction you guys want me to go in. Also gives me an idea of what videos to do more of, what to do less of, and that kind of thing, so I can give you the content you're looking for, essentially. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. Have a lovely, lovely week, whatever it is you get up to. Try not to stress too much, says me. And take care of yourselves. See you soon.